with better regulations for property practitioners, investors, and estate agents.
Yeah.
But I want us to just touch on what the level 4 today entails, and then be able to answer as many questions as we can, because I'm sure a lot of people have similar questions that I have also, and then some of them might even have questions that I didn't have here, and then also then we're live on YouTube too. Okay. All right. Hi everybody. Welcome. We're going to be just starting in a few, and more people are coming in now. Good. And we're also having people on YouTube. Our YouTube family is coming in also. Welcome, guys. We're going to be starting in 4 more minutes. So today I'm with Michelle Dickens, and we're going to be discussing practical solutions for landlords during the lockdown. And also, I'm very curious to learn about these permits that we have to get as property practitioners. It seems like, the easing down of and reopening of the economy is coming with some regulations and things that we have to really learn about and be well informed, so we can be able to make some informed decisions, because things are changing every day. There's always updates that are coming. We're not even sure what level 3 is going to be entailing, what level 2 is going to be having, and it's always good to stay well informed. And one of the things and ways I've been staying well informed was actually since the lockdown started in April, I've been meeting up with a lot of real estate experts and finance experts to really discuss what was going on and what is going on with these updates and changes, just to keep very well informed. And one of the ways and that I've been doing that today actually is, I think more people are coming in now. Thank you guys. Welcome. If you just came in, just let us know where you guys watching from. If you just came in now. Let us know where you guys watching from. So one of the ways I've also been, staying well informed and keeping update with the property updates that are happening during the lockdown is actually meeting up with, real estate experts, Lanewood, Pretoria. Oh, wow. Okay, welcome. Phyllis Duplessis from Pretoria. Welcome, guys. We're going to be trying to add as much video as we can. And we just want you guys to give us, the next 45 minutes of your attention, so we can be able to add as much video as we can. And then we're going to be opening up the Q&A at the end, and watching from Felens. Liam, okay, welcome, Liam from Felens. Thank you guys for joining us today. And any questions, actually we're going to be opening up the Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions of anything we'll be discussing here, so just leave us the questions there. And watching from Celeste from Kimberley. Welcome Celeste from Kimberley. And we have Margaretha from Springs. Welcome, guys. So we're going to be touching as many things as we can today with regards to the final regulations of the lockdown level 4. And then we, as property practitioners, investors, and people who are involved in real estate, we want to be sure when are we going to be getting to actually fully function and be able to close the deals, be able to, if you have tenants, to show in the place, to do the inspections and all those things. That's what we also want to be able to touch on. And I'm also sure that you guys have questions about the permits and many other things that are happening. When could tenants move? What's the legal way to do evictions? Can we still do that now? Or are we going to wait for the lockdown to be over if there's any evictions to be done? So welcome. And then we also have Celeste from Kimberley. We mentioned that. Okay, so guys, I think we're going to be starting just now. So the past few months have been crazy in our country, and we went from diagnosing a few cases of COVID-19 to now a full strict lockdown that we just had, and now we're starting to reopen the economy, as Cyril Ramaphosa, President, mentioned yesterday, that things might be actually easing out at the end of May, so it might be actually going into level 3, which is good news, and we hope the level 3 comes with better conditions for us as property people and property practitioners. And then I just wanted to say a few things before we get started, is that all the giveaways that we're going to be giving out, including the rental recovery reports and my free book, are going to be sent out today after this live stream. So if you guys registered online, then you're going to be getting that on your emails. And if you're on YouTube, I'd encourage you guys to actually register online next time, so we can be able to send you guys all the giveaways that we're giving out on this live streams that we do weekly. So I just want to put in my charger here on my laptop. Okay, here we go. And then also we're going to be opening up a Q&A at the end. So if there's any questions that you guys have while we're going through the interview with Michelle today, just put that in the comment section or in the Q&A section. And then we're going to be touching up on those questions at the later stage by today. And also, if we didn't cover any of the questions that you guys have by the end of this live stream, just pop us the questions, and then we might be able to get you that questions answered. So today with me, I'm with Michelle Dickens. Michelle is the Managing Director and co-founder of TPN Credit Bureau. TPN is South Africa's only credit bureau that's specializing in collection of tenant behavior and rental payment profile information. Michelle established TPN in 2000 after working as a rental agent and experiencing firsthand the frustration of dealing with delinquent tenants. In 2007, the advent of the National Credit Act, TPN registered as a credit bureau and was the first credit bureau globally to specialize in the property industry. Since then, TPN has developed many innovative products and formed close working relationship with global credit bureaus, TransUnion, and Experian to further enhance vetting tenants. TPN's biggest contribution to the property industry has undoubtedly been the creation of rental payment profile and another global first, which gives tenants the opportunity to improve their credit scorecard while renting. Michelle Dickens, welcome.
Thanks, Ezra. Good to be here.
100%. Good to have you. So, Michelle, I just wanted to also start this conversation by saying, when people ask you what do you say it is that you do?
Well, I don't say I'm a credit bureau because that doesn't always go down well. But ultimately, we're a bureau, but we're specialist, and we like to collect data that other big traditional bureaus don't collect. Initially, that was rental payment profile data. So our job literally is to go out and collect data on every single tenant, every single month, who they are, where they rent, how much they pay for their rent, what is the property that they rent, and the most important part is how do they pay that every month. So is it paid on time, paid late, partially paid, or not paid, and build up a profile for the tenants. Because Ezra, ultimately, the majority of tenants are actually good tenants. Tenants have a bad name. Tenant from hell stories are always in the media, right? But ultimately, tenants are good tenants. And it's about being able to allow estate agents and landlords to profile the person up front and place the quality tenants in their properties. So that's what we're about.
No, I fully understand. And I also wanted to say, with that data that you guys are having, what are your view on what's going on right now with the lockdown in terms of the rentals and the rental market for all the commercial, retail, and up to residential properties? What are you guys seeing with the data that you guys are working with?
So as you know, we collect the data and we put out the rental payments monitor once a quarter. And typically what we like to do is we like to wait till 6 weeks after the quarter's ended before we release the data, because there is a lag in some of the data. So today, this morning, I've been drafting the Q1 rental payment profile monitor. And that's sitting at 81%. So as of Q1, 81% of residential tenants were in good standing with their rent. What is good standing? As we know, it's tenants that are paid up by the end of the month. So whether that's paid in on the first of the month, in the perceived grace period, or by the end of the month, the tenant is paid up. And that's sitting at 81%. Now, as you know, Q1 ended, and we were in lockdown when Q1 ended, because lockdown started on the 26th of March. But in theory, Ezra, we were supposed to have collected all of Q1's data by the 1st of March. So there wasn't a big impact on Q1's data. The impact that we're going to feel is in April and May and June, and that's Q2. So as tenants moved into their new properties come the 1st of April, some tenants managed to do that move. When the president made his announcement, and we had a couple of days before we went into hard lockdown, albeit the first was in the hard lockdown period, that I think it was the Wednesday and the Thursday, a lot of tenants managed to move on that 25th, 26th of the month. The impact will be felt on the 1st of April's rent. So what we were doing is we were looking at the rental payment profile on an everyday basis. How much rent has been collected by yesterday, the 13th of May? For the May month's rent, that was sitting at 58%. 58% of tenants are in good standing for the month of May so far, given that the month is not closed, which means we have to get back to that 81%, right? That is kind of where we were in Q1. Let's get ourselves back to that 81%. If we look at April, so on the 13th of April, we were at 62% at this stage. So 62% of tenants were in good standing by the 13th of April. Only 58% of tenants are in good standing on the 13th of May. So we're behind on a per day basis as we look. So how did April finish? Well, if I look at the data as of yesterday for the month of April, we ended up at 74% good standing. So where we were on the 13th of April at 62%, by the time we closed the month off, we're now sitting at 74%. Again, below the 81%, but there is a lag on the data, so I do expect that number to improve slightly, or I'm hoping that number improves slightly. So therefore, what can we predict for May? I think that's the question. We're probably going to see below what we were for April. April is at 74%, so for May, I predict it to be the 4% below. That leaves us at around about 70%. That's the prediction for May. How does that fit into, say, the global economic crisis? At the bottom end of at the bottom of the dip, we sat at 71% of tenants in good standing. So around about where we were with the global economic crisis. Now, there's something different that happened now that didn't happen in the global economic crisis, and that is the amount of job losses that we've seen. And as a result of that, TPN put out a deposit utilization and deferment agreement. And so there's been a lot of deposit utilization for the month of April and for the month of May that we wouldn't have seen in the global economic crisis. As a result of the use of those liquidities and of those funds, it also impacts people's credit profile. So I don't think we're seeing the true impact of non-payment because deposits have been used in this period.
Okay, but if there's going to be any extension with the lockdown, because the president mentioned that we must ease down the phases in some areas, and then some areas might be not eased down as we go, depending on the cases, the number of cases that they found. Are you saying that there might be a little bit of a with the including the health threat that we might be facing with the COVID-19? I mean, there's also an economic threat because people are not getting jobs and doing that. So if they already use their deposit with the landlords, what are the next 3-4 months that are going to be looking like in terms of the rentals and the tenants that are in good standing? What are you guys seeing with regard to that? And I'm also asking from a landlord point of view, and also from the tenant's point of view, to saying what are the other solutions besides the ones that we already have with regards to the deferred rentals and the rental recovery reports that you guys have. What are we seeing from those other months that the deposit won't be able to be utilized?
So Isha, this is an important question because we need this market to open up. We need tenants to be able to vacate and move in and change tenancies for a couple of reasons. One is where a tenant has legitimately lost their income, legitimately has used the deposit, and now does not have income or deposit to use for future months' rentals. We need to allow those people who do want to vacate the property, we need to give them the opportunity to do that. Because the longer you hold somebody within that current rented accommodation without the means to pay, we're just making those particular tenants more indebted to their landlords. So we absolutely do need to see the opening up for relocation for tenants. And I think it's starting to happen. So if we look at, we started the hard lockdown, no one can move. And then on the 29th of April, just before the end of lockdown, there were the new set of disaster management regulations that were published. Those disaster management regulations that were published on the 29th of April repealed all the previous regulations. And what they said were, this is what alert level 4 looks like. I'm going to define one of the definitions in those regulations, which was the period of lockdown. Lockdown was defined as being the period between the 26th of March and the 30th of April. That was the lockdown period. So we're no longer in lockdown, we're now in alert level 4. Included in those disaster management regulations was the ability for people to move between provinces, municipalities, and districts to get themselves back to their place of residence if they had been stranded in the wrong province, municipality, or district during the lockdown. That period was open between the 1st and the 7th of May. It was not for people to move into new accommodation. It was to allow them to get back to their place of residence. In other words, you have your residence is ordinarily in Johannesburg, but you've moved to Limpopo, back to your home residence, and now you want to get back to your ordinary place of residence where you work, which is in Gauteng. You may relocate for that purpose between the 1st and the 7th of May. So that was the first relaxation. Then on the 6th of May, just before that relaxation period ended, we had the directions that were issued. And the directions that were issued said people can now relocate if they entered into a lease agreement prior to or before the lockdown period. Now remember, I defined the lockdown period in terms of the disaster management regulations as the period between the 26th of March and the 30th of April. So if a lease agreement was entered into prior to or before then the 30th of April, those tenants now have the opportunity to get themselves a permit to relocate. And that doesn't matter if that relocation is across provinces, municipalities, or districts. Anyone who entered into a lease agreement may now relocate. How do they do that? They go to the police station, they get their permit signed by the station commander. That's a Form 2 on those disaster management regulations. They get that permit to relocate signed by the station commander. The station commander is only going to do that if you provide them with a copy of the outgoing lease and a copy of the incoming lease. And they're specifically looking for when was that new lease entered into. The permit to relocate is now between the period of the 7th of May to the 7th of June. That's fantastic. Oh, and it's also for people whose properties have been transferred. So if you have an immovable property and the property transferred prior to the lockdown, remember prior to the 26th of March, then those people also can get themselves a permit to relocate and they can now move as well. That is fantastic. It means that there's been more relaxation. And Ezra, this is what I think. I think that we don't, or the government's intention is not to allow people to relocate all at once, is to open the market up slowly. So we've already got a period that we're in right now between 7 May and 7 June when people can relocate. And I foresee that as we get out of level 4 and we move into level 3, as the president announced by the end of May, that there'll be more relaxation on what which tenants will be able to relocate in the next phase. I do expect us to see more relaxation.
No, I fully understand. And then the bigger thing right now is, property practitioner being able to go back to fully operating, viewing houses, doing deals, meeting up with the sellers and viewings and all those things. And I know a lot of passionate property practitioners right now who are really stuck because of the lockdown, including myself. But as much as we can try to do deals online, you need to go see the house you buy. You need to go, see the property you want to move into if you're a tenant. And you need to go, be able to show your property if you're a rental agent in those cases. So one of the things that I've seen was there are permits that were required for property practitioners. I wanted you to also touch a little bit on that in terms of how do they find them and, what is the procedure and what, you're seeing there. And then in terms of also, when are you seeing this thing being able to go back to normal in terms of, other people lobbying for all the property practitioners to be able to be full functional? Because recently we just had this office reopened, which was good news. A lot of transfers are going to now be being processed. We might have like some delays with regards to raise clearances because of skeleton staff that we have, at the council. But in terms of practicing, that's where I'm asking with regards to when are you guys seeing that happening, and what are these permits that people can be able to obtain to be able to navigate in this lockdown or this level 4 alert that we are in currently?
So 2 questions there. I'm going to deal with the deeds office first. I saw notification today that the Pretoria deeds office is in actual fact not yet open, waiting for their PPEs. So although the deeds offices were allowed to open, we're not seeing all of them opening just yet as they prepare their offices in order to have a come back to work. As you know, there needs to be a workplace plan in place, and there needs to be special consideration as to who's allowed back, considering people's health, people over the age of 60, people's access to social distancing. So I do know that the Pretoria Deeds Office has not opened as of yet. And of course, Ezra, the second question is that once they do open and properties start to transact, we start to see the transfer of properties, we could be left in a situation where people are now have taken ownership of their property, and they will have a mortgage that they'll need to pay on the property. And if we don't open up the restrictions on movement, people will be stuck in the property that they're renting and will ultimately be responsible for both rent and a mortgage. So I do think that come the end of this month, we are going to see, as a result of those type of scenarios, we are going to see a relaxation of the restrictions as we see them at the moment. Coming back to the essential service workers in terms of property practitioners. So when you look at those disaster management regulations, estate agents are absolutely not one of the service providers that are listed as an essential service worker.
Yeah.
But in terms of the relocation, the permit to relocate, tenants and people who's taken transfer their properties are entitled to relocate. And in order for that to happen, there's a couple of things that need to take place. The first is there's going to need to be a key handover. People aren't going to be able to relocate unless they are given the keys in order to do that. The second thing is, in terms of the Rental Housing Act, that a compulsory joint incoming and joint outgoing inspection needs to take place by law. Otherwise, the landlord's not able to use the deposit in terms of any damages that might have occurred. We spoke to the head of disaster management in PE when this permit to relocate came out, and he confirmed that as a result of, if you look in the disaster management regulations, and we look in table 1 and we look under part H, it deals with financial services and business, so financial and business services. Point 2.2 deals with the ability for payment transactions, not least of which would be your deposit and your repayment of your deposit transaction to an outgoing tenant after the outgoing inspection has been done. And part 9, which deals with essential service providers who support, it deals with professional services who support essential services within the business and financial services. So as a result of this, as a result of estate agents being a support to the payment redistribution of the deposit payments, estate agents would then be entitled, under these limited circumstances, to register themselves as an essential service provider. How do you do that? You go onto the Biz Portal website, you enter your business company registration number in, you select the category, which is financial and business services. There are 2 or 3 other questions that you need to complete, and then SIPS will provide you with your essential service certificate. You may then, as an estate agent, so that's the business owner, the principal, would then be able to complete the permit as an essential service provider for each of the agents who would be responsible for the key handover and incoming and outgoing inspection that are associated with the permit to relocate. So SAPS signs off the tenant's permit to relocate. The estate agent has their permit as an essential service provider to be able to travel, to meet the tenant, to do the key handover and incoming and outgoing inspection. So it's for these very limited circumstances that you would get your essential service permit.
No, I definitely understand. So I just wanted us to also go through that step of how does somebody actually get their essential permit. So is this something that we can be able to go through again? You mentioned that you go to your business portal and then you register.
Yeah, 100%. So you go to bizportal.gov.za, bizportal.gov.za. You then click on services. So down at the bottom of the screen, you click on services, and then you can go, and there's a screen with a number of different checkboxes, and one of them highlighted in red is the essential service checkbox. So you click on that box, and there, the first question that they ask you is enter your company registration number. So you type in your company registration number, Takes you to the next page where there are 4 questions that you have to complete. The first question is, what category are you registering as? And remember, I referred back to we're registering as category H, part H on those disaster management regulations, table 1, which refer to point 2.2 and point 9. That is financial and business services. So the category that we choose is financial and business services. You complete those 2 or 3 extra questions and you submit. And it's immediate. You're going to get your essential services certificates for the business immediately. Then the business owner or principal would then say which of my agents are going to be responsible for the key handover or the incoming or outgoing inspections. And those individual agents would then be given a permit, a permit of an essential service that the business owner will put the business stamp on and sign.
No, but that's good news. That sounds like good news for the real estate industry, because at least now there's going to be like a little bit of easing up and economic activity that's happening there. And I hope that level 3 comes with some better terms there, so we can be able to navigate around. One thing I also wanted to get your view on is your view on the property market up to date with regards to the lockdown and the effects of it, and what you're seeing in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly that we might be getting at this point from your point of view.
So Ezra, coming into this, vacancy levels were sitting at around about 9%. So vacancies were actually quite high. Not in all the different sectors of the market, but sort of your middle tier was sitting at around about 7%. And as the tiers got higher, so you moved into your 12 to 25,000 rand properties, the vacancy levels started to increase. My prediction is people, we've had a lot of people that have lost their income, either outright retrenchments or loss of earnings, less work hours, limited income. So the prediction is that people are going to want to downscale. We're going to have people that unfortunately are going to be in a forced sale position, both in terms of people who are owner occupied, so they own their single home, and as a result of these economic conditions at the moment, they're going to be forced sellers. We're also going to see many landlords who might be over leveraged and also facing non-payments of rental, and might want to sell some of the properties within their portfolio. Some might want to exit in their entirety. Those landlords we're going to see more properties coming onto the market. And as a result of that oversupply, we're definitely going to see a decline in home prices. That's the first prediction. The second one is, as people downscale, I think we're going to see a lot more vacancies in the higher end of the market, and a lot of deflation in the rental prices. So I suspect that we're going to see rental prices come down, certainly in the high end of the market, and very much no rental increases, I doubt, for the rest of this year. I very much doubt. I think if you've got a good tenant at this stage and one who has an income, hold on to them.
No, I fully understand. And I mean, landlords were already having a tough time this year with our economy, and all that the landlords that had to do was, try to add as much value as they can on the property, try to make sure that the maintenance is on point, try to make sure that they serve their tenants at the level best. So I think right now, that's also giving us a chance to actually increase the standards, so you can be able to keep your tenant, so you can also build up a good relationship with them. And as you say, if you have a good paying tenant, then you want to make sure that you're keeping them, in a very good relationship with them. And then another thing is, you mentioned that it's going to be a buyer's market for real estate investors. That's also something that I'm seeing when you're saying that the property prices, you're going to be seeing a lot of well-priced properties coming into the market. I just wanted to also ask you the last questions, and then we can be able to open up the Q&A for the panel that we have here. Is there a comparison that we can make between the recession that we are going to be having right now because of the lockdown to what we had in 2009 and 2008. That's something I always wanted to find out. And mainly is because right now we have things like stimulus bills and all this, adrenaline rush shots that are being sent by the government into the economy. Like we just had 500 billion rand that came out. The president mentioned that they already spent around 11 billion that they managed to put for helping out other businesses and things like that. So what I'm seeing is, as much as things might be hectic right now, I think they're going to get back to normal, actually, in a shorter period of time than they did in 2009 or so. But I also wanted to hear your view on, is there a comparison that we can make between what is going on right now? Now, I know that we're still in it, we're not yet done, but is there something that you see in terms of relations there?
So John Luce from FNB, the property economist at FNB, used our data to do that exact forecasting. So I'm going to rely on John, the property economist here.
Okay.
And John looked at our data from the global financial crisis and the period it took to recover. We bottomed out in the end of 2008, the beginning of 2009. I think it was the last quarter of 2008. We bottomed out at 71% of tenants in good standing. And it took us 2 years to recover back to where we were just prior to that period. So it took us 2 years to recover, Ezra. And the recovery there was back to 81%, which is where we were just before this lockdown. But tenants improved even more than that. By 2013, 2014, the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014, tenants in good standing had improved all the way to 86%. That's really what we want to see. We want to see the market recover to that point. And that took an additional 3.5 years. So what we're looking at is a 5 to 6 year period to recover or to get us back to that position. But I do think from a recovery perspective, it's going to be a 2-year recovery.
Okay. No, I think you definitely answered that well for me. So I think right now I'm just going to be opening up the questions for Q&A. If anybody has questions about what we just discussed today, and about any other questions that we might have not touched on, I think that's when we can be able to open up that. So if you guys have any questions, please let us know, and then we can be able to answer that. And I also wanted to say that I saw, recently I was on your Facebook and I saw a video where you jumped off 11,000 feet to get a bedside view of South Africa's property valuation. So do you want to share your experience on how that went?
So we released our property analytics data in terms of being able to go in and have a look at a property property valuation. So how do we go in online on TPN and say, I want to know what the automated valuation of this property is? And I said to the team, guys, what can we do that gives everyone a bird's eye view of what this would look like? And some smart person in my office said, why don't we push you out of a plane, Michelle, and you can photograph it as you plummet to earth? Ezra, what a scary experience. What a scary experience.
No, but you looked excited. Sorry to disturb. You looked excited when you were jumping on it. I was like, you know what? It's not like something that you can encourage somebody to do it after lockdown. It might be fun, something to do.
Definitely. If you want an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
You know, one of the questions that we're getting asked a lot at the moment is, what happens if I have a tenant who's in my property right now? How do I collect rent from them? Like, what is my legal position? And your legal position has not changed. So if the tenant's in your property and he's not paying rent, the first thing you need to do is send out that letter of demand. So that letter of demand needs to go out, and you've got your 20 business days that the tenant needs to recover their default. And those 20 business days stand is that there's no suspension of those days. After the 20 business days, you cancel your lease as normal, and you demand your tenant to vacate immediately as normal, understanding that they're in lockdown. They're not going to be able to do it until they're allowed to do it. And evictions can happen in this phase of alert level 4 as well. So the courts will issue your eviction orders. They're just going to suspend them until the end of lockdown level 4, at which point the sheriff can go in and execute on that.
I understand. We actually have two questions here from Helena Hamant. She's saying there's agents that are showing properties and signing new contracts. Who would regulate this? Is this really someone that will check the agent? Is there really someone that will check the agents? Okay, that's the first question we're getting from Helena.
So ultimately, if you are doing viewings and you're out on the road doing stuff that you're not allowed to do, the people regulating that are the police at the moment, the police and the army. And if you get caught in a roadblock, they're going to look for your permit and they're going to want to know what you're doing. Also, when your tenant is relocated, so you go and you do a viewing and the tenant enters into a lease at the moment, and the tenant arrives at SAPS to get their permit to relocate stamped. SAPS are not stamping permits to relocate if those lease agreements were entered into in the period not envisaged in the disaster management regulations. So it's SAP's responsibility at the moment.
Okay, so so I think her question is answered because is there someone who will really check it? So I can see that we managed to answer that. So we have another question from Celeste. She's asking if there's a tenant placed on no work, no pay basis, can't afford the rent any longer. May they terminate the lease agreement immediately? And can the landlord hold them responsible for 2 months rental, as the notice period in the contract stays 2 months either way?
Okay, brilliant question. So in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, as opposed to the lease agreement, tenants are entitled to cancel the lease at any point in time by giving 20 business days notice to cancel. So the tenant can come at any point during the lease. They can come today on the 14th of May and they can say, I want to cancel my lease. I realize I must give 20 business days notice in order to do that. And that's going to take them to around about the 14th of June, and they're liable for rent during that period. The landlord is also entitled to a reasonable penalty. So the landlord can say, I accept your cancellation. I know you can't afford it. And I have a cancellation penalty that will be determined by my losses. So the landlord may say, look, you're a brand new tenant, and I paid my estate agent 12 months worth of procurement commission. So my pro rata loss of that might be 10 months of the 12 months. And I'm going to include that as part of my cancellation penalty. Also, because I'm unable to place a new tenant in the property during the lockdown period, my property will be without rent. I won't be able to place a tenant. I won't have rent. So part of my cancellation penalty will include my loss of rent while I'm not able to replace you as a tenant. Ultimately, where a tenant can't afford you and doesn't have the income and wants to cancel and actually vacates, as some tenants have done, even though they're not entitled to in lockdown, that is the best position for the landlord, because you don't want to be in a position where you've got a tenant who can't afford to pay the rental but doesn't move and decides to sit tight. You'd rather the tenant does vacate. But remember, the landlord has rights. They have rights to the 20 business days of rent, plus they have rights to the reasonable cancellation penalty.
No, I think that is a good question to answer. I wanted to also ask with regards to moving. I mean, obviously movement is going to require permits for both the tenants and the agents. But I wanted to say, if the tenant doesn't vacate and say, okay, I can't pay anymore, but I'm going to wait for the lockdown to be done. So what is that scenario is going to be looking like for the landlord?
Yeah, so the landlord's entitled to, if the tenant cancels and the tenant remains in the property, or if the landlord cancels the lease for a non-paying tenant and the tenant remains in the property during the period where they're physically, legally not able to move out because of alert level 4, the landlord is entitled to holding over damages. Those holding over damages are equivalent to what the rental amount would have been. But we're not going to charge the tenant rent. We're going to charge him holding over damages, equivalent to what the rental would have been. Ultimately, though, you still need to collect on it, Ezra. So even though you're invoicing for it, you still need to collect on it. And if the tenant isn't earning an income, it's going to be difficult to collect on. But the landlord's entitled to it.
No, that's what I was also about to say, that if that tenant essentially is one of the people who lost their jobs and then they don't have any other income, and you also cancel their lease and they say, okay, we can't move out and there's over damages. it's going to be a little bit of a building debt, and it's going to be something that they might not be able to pay out later. Okay, so I see that. Okay.
I just want to complete that. I strongly urge then that the landlord and tenants, or the tenant signs an acknowledgement of debt for what that value would be. So the tenant might not be able to repay it at the moment, but with a signed acknowledgement of debt, it's easier to get a judgment to get against the tenant at a later date. And as you know, once you've got judgment, you can collect for a period of 30 years. So depending on what the value is that's outstanding, you might want to enter into an acknowledgement of debt and make installment repayments for future period when the tenants, even if it's R1,000 a month, if the tenant's then going to catch up those installments in. As soon as the tenant defaults on one of those future installments, then it's quite easy to go and get your judgment for that.
Okay, now I fully understand. I think thank you for clarifying that. So we just had 4 people who just entered right now, and we're about to close down. So guys, we're going to give you 2 more minutes to send out any questions, and we're going to be closing out soon. Otherwise, Michelle, thank you very much for joining us today. I think this session really helped us, and I'm just also, I'm clear that I'm here being well informed as things goes on. What I'm seeing right now is that every week things are changing, and we're not even sure what's going to be happening at level 3. We're just hoping though things become a little bit more flexible for all property practitioners. I mean, we as a ecosystem here, ecosystem here, we can't exist without each other. We need our agents, we need our rental agents, we need everybody, we need you guys. So I think when everybody's back on the market, and deals are starting to come back on the market also, then that'll be like an exciting time. Otherwise, I think for me as an investor, I think there's going to be a buyer's market. I'm excited about that. Otherwise, with the vacancies and all these other things that we might be seeing because of loss of jobs and loss of income, that is also a threat that we've seen there. But I think one of the best traits of successful people and investors in general is just being able to adapt. So adapting to whatever that's going on right now, adapting to the technologies that we can take advantage of, adapting to a lot more other things that we can be able to do. Okay, so we're having another question here from Liam. Liam saying, should the agent doing the incoming and exit inspection have a copy of the lease? That's question number 1. And then the second question is, does the lease need to be signed by both the incoming tenant and the owner, or is it fine if it is only signed by the incoming tenant? So yeah, that's another question from Liam there.
Yeah, so you need to have a lease agreement, a complete lease agreement, a valid lease agreement. And the lease agreement is going to be perused by the station commander at SAPS. And if he finds that lease agreement to be insufficiently complete or not to comply in terms of the period to which the permit to relocate must be signed off, they're not going to sign it. But obviously, every police station operates differently. I can only confirm what the regulations state, and from the estate agent's permit to be an essential service provider and to travel in accordance with that, the only thing that they need to have on them is the permit. But for further documentation, it's a good idea to have a copy of the tenant's permit to relocate with you. The tenants, however, when they are relocating, must have the permit to relocate on them, plus the incoming and outgoing lease agreements, and of course, proof of identity and confirmation of how many people will be relocated. So the tenant, in terms of the permit, needs the permit to relocate, incoming and outgoing inspection, and their copy of the identification when they are traveling. The estate agent only needs their permit to work as an essential service provider. But we suggest a copy of the tenant's permit to relocate is included on them as well.
No, I fully understand. I think that is well answered. So Liam will let us know if this question is well answered. The one question I also have is, viewings in general. Right now, I still see a lot of property that is on the market right now that has been advertised. And if people want to view, okay, Liam says thanks. I think his question is well answered. Okay, so if people want to view in the current level 4 alert, so what is the process there, in simpler terms?
electronic viewings, virtual viewings. Guys, you're not able, in terms of the regulations at the moment, we're just not able to do those viewings. So what people are doing is they're signing offers to purchases and they're signing lease agreements on the basis of the virtual viewing that they've had, subject to a final on-site viewing. So do the deals, and then as soon as we're allowed to do those viewings, we can all get our permits and we can all go around and do those. And those, I mean, we don't know what that world's going to look like, and we don't know whether it's going to be at the end of May or, you know, in terms of the draft levels, which of course we cannot rely on because they really were drafts. The commercial market was opening up under level 3 for real estate practitioners, and the residential market was opening up under level 2. But there was no relocation, permits to relocation even envisaged in level 4. So we honestly don't know what level 3 is going to look like, either for commercial or for real estate. But my suggestion right now is, to get back to the question, my suggestion right now is do your virtual viewings, sign your OTPs, sign your lease agreements, but make them subject to that final viewing when we're entitled to do so.
No, true. I must say, virtual viewings, even the banks do accept videos, they do accept pictures at this point, and also signed lease agreements, they do accept that. They do pre-approve your bond based on those things. So I think the deals should still go on, and virtual viewings in whatever way. It might be a video, it might be somebody who's already on the side to take videos of whatever's going on there and then be able to send it online, or whichever ways. I know, like, you know, a lot of, you know, property practitioners are creative people. They will find ways to navigate around this. And I think we don't have any more questions, and this is going to be the end of our session. So Michelle, thanks a lot for spending, you know, today with us and answering some of those questions that we have. I'm sure as we go, you know, and we're getting all these updates daily, nobody knows what's going to be happening, but we can, you know, rely on the information that we're getting as we go and be able to, you know, to make some well-informed decisions from there. Otherwise, and thanks for everybody who attended today. And then with regards to the rental recovery reports and all the other giveaways we're going to be giving out, we're going to be sending to you guys on email. So if you registered online, then you're going to be getting that to your email. Any questions, you know, you can send it to us, and then we'll try to answer that as soon as we can. And otherwise, thank you guys for attending. See you guys on the next live stream. And thank you, Michelle, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I think there's one more question. Oh, is Helena? Was Helena saying thanks? Oh, it's not a question. I just saw that in the Q&A. All right. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes.